Good morning. I have a fabulous range of women leaders, right from a writer to an activist farmer, and Chetna, the boundaries that you have broken, we will talk about them, an ambassador, a career diplomat, and Neera, who we have seen build this ecosystem for social entrepreneurship so very successfully in our country. And I'm truly happy and proud to be sitting here between all of them. When I was talking to them earlier about what does women's leadership mean? What is it? How do we understand? So when I was talking to my panelists, one of the things that we all agreed upon, that women's leadership is no longer a hypothesis. It's there, it's relevant, it's right in front of us. It's been tested, it's been proven. Now is the time for us to scale it. What are we going to do to be able to not only scale, but really leapfrog and open all the doors possible? Because the woman is no longer standing at the door. She's already got her foot in the door. She's opening the door. Whether you're opening it or not, doesn't matter. She is opening it. So therefore, how are we going to work with her? How are we going to partner with her? How are we going to build the skills? But before all of that, Chetna, I turn to you. Farmer, activist, social entrepreneur, par excellence, part of the World Economic Forum's All Women Chair Committee this year in Davos. Many, many congratulations. You have been a forerunner for all of us. So just to ask you, how do women lead differently? Is there a difference? How have you seen that through your career, your work?
So thanks, Payal. And I would just say that it was so humbling, Prema, to listen to you. A legendary, I felt today, like, seeing you in the Mumbai with Spark and all, and now at this stage with so many community global leaders. So it's just, just humbled, Prema. And Godavari Tai, it was like, तुम्ही ज्यावेळी बोलत होता ना, त्यावेळी मला असं वाटलं, अरे असलं धाडस, हे धाडस तुम्ही अमेरिकेला पोचवलं. तिथल्याही बायकांना तेवढं धाडस नसेल. Coming back to Payal, the question about I just start with, as you mentioned about World Economic Forum, when I was sent a letter from Forum that they would request me to become a co-chair of World Economic Forum with other 6 women. Of course, at that time you would feel like, oh my God, yes, I want to be there. But then also you want to make sure that you are going on those global forum. What are you taking it there for those forum? And so then and the difference I see there on the global forums and with the community, how the link also can be brought up, but at the same time, how the thinking is different. So I said to World Economic Forum that, let me think and I'll get back to you. And then when I talk to women that, I have been selected, requested for being co-chair, what should I do? And our women, we have started a homegrown bank of 150 crores where this saving capital has been no outside support, just a Mandeshi women. You know what they said? Go there. I was telling that World Economic Forum where all investors come, where all people, those who have a lot of money comes, and what should I say? They said that go there and say that my courage is my capital. म्हणजे मी मराठीत सांगते की तिथे आपल्या बायकांनी सांगितलं की आमचं भांडवल हेच आमचं भांडवल, धाडस हे आमचं भांडवल आहे. पैसा हे आमचं भांडवल नाही आहे, धाडस हे भांडवल आहे. And I just want to share with this, I got also another thing where I can put a condition to the World Economic Forum that I will only participate as a co-chair if they allow me to declare a fund for women entrepreneurs on that forum. And in fact, they did not agree. They said, we have never done it before. And we don't want to set the trend that, you know, if you come here and launch and we are giving you the platform. I said, well, I think it is very important because this fund is going to be working for rural women entrepreneurs, and that was something, innovation I'm bringing in World Economic Forum. If you want to take that opportunity, fine. If you don't want, you lose. So then finally they agreed, and I'm very proud to say, Payal, that we launched the fund of 100 crore for women entrepreneurs, dedicated to women and rural women entrepreneurs at Davos. But when I say that, from where this energy comes, from where these boldness come to say something to know unless you listen to this, it actually comes from the community leaders. And those who are sitting there, मला तुम्हाला हे सांगायचं आहे की आमच्यामध्ये सगळीकडे जायचं, बोलायचं, ते धाडस येतं ना, ते तुमच्याकडून येतं. इथे जे उस्मानाबादच्या महिला आहेत, स्वयंशिक्षण प्रयोगच्या सखी आहेत, त्यांच्याकडून येतं. And I'll just summarize in saying that I would also request Vanita Pise to stand, who is our farmer producer company's head. And she's invited by IFC to London in November. And she runs the farmer company which has the capital of 5 crores. And she does the futures in corn. Now imagine, I mean, Mandeshi Bank has CEO, Mandeshi Bank has now some multinational company staff members have also joined, but they cannot deal with future. But Vanita Pise, who has not even done a 10th grade, can deal with does the futures in corn. You can talk to her at the lunchtime, but what I actually want to say, that global forum like Unnati, what they can bring the value is that value at a global level of these wise women who would come on the global forum and who will change the terms of trade, who will change the negotiations, who will change the way investors look into it, who will make them understand that if you really are thinking about the, you know, whatever, all those fancy words of climate change, fancy words of all the social entrepreneurship, whatever, they will make it more grassroots and wise. And again, I would say that they will say that everything is fine, everything will come, but the patience and the wiseness of the community, and as Prema mentioned, that they are the power of peers, right? That's what the very powerful statement, that your peer gives you power. If you have that, you can do a lot of changes. So with that, I would say, Payal, that, you know, running a Mandeshi Bank, running this, launching this alternative investment fund, the experience is there, which later on we can discuss how investors are thinking, how community leaders are thinking, who can lead the investors. We can do later, but I would just...
Thank you. Thank you so much, Itna, for all of that. Very, very inspiring. With that, you mentioned, my courage is my capital, right? That's what your women said to you. And the energy comes from community leaders. So courage is my capital. Violet, I turn to you. Yesterday, you and I had a long conversation about your journey, about your courage. So what I truly am able to link that with you, courage is your capital.
I'll start with really appreciating to be part of this very important forum. And before I begin speaking, it's important for me to say that I'm the chair of Wairu Commission, and we are many of us here participating in this conference, grassroots women leaders that have lived from their struggles of poverty, struggles of post-conflict, disaster, and have risen to be very big leaders. Can you please just stand up where you are, the grassroots women from Wairu Commission? We are one. Oh, we are together. We are one. Thank you so much. So I want to say very quickly about this organization. Wairu Commission is a global movement of grassroots women-led organizations that are based in all the continents of the world. And our big vision is to bring together grassroots women, as Brema says, not as targets, but as core important actors in development that are developing their communities from the struggles that they have gone through. And we just had our very first election to actually demonstrate that grassroots women can be leaders or are leaders of their own movement that can transform the world. And I was elected the chair of Wairu Commission. My background is a caregiver. I started working in the year 1999 from when my community was really hit with HIV/AIDS. I supported in organizing grassroots women in my community to work together to shoulder the burden of HIV when the hospitals could not take on everyone who was HIV positive and put in bed. We were providing care in the home. I did not know that that was the beginning of my leadership. But what changed most is when I learned to work together with other grassroots women through the Home-Based Care Alliance, and we were linked to Wairu Commission, an organization that supports grassroots women to understand themselves not just as service providers, but as agents of the issues they are addressing. From that, I was able to understand that it is important for me as a grassroots woman to understand where are the resources for HIV/AIDS. What can we do as grassroots women who are key actors in this section to be part of decision-making to determine how HIV/AIDS programming is happening in our community. And I think that actually answers how grassroots women lead differently. As grassroots women, we don't just wake up in the morning and stand to say we want to be elected as leaders. No. We start with going through difficult situations. We go through difficult situations of disease, difficult situations of disaster, and we learn organizing with each other in our small groups. We federate these groups, and from this, we are able to develop courage that can be able to help us to speak to each other. The power and the courage of grassroots women working together begins with the one grassroots woman speaking to the other grassroots woman and sharing and understanding the issue they are going through. It also begins with grassroots women being able to understand the systems of governance, the systems, institutions that are mandated to resolve this problem. For example, when I talk about HIV/AIDS, I heard Kodavari talking about issues of poverty and Brahma talking about issues of earthquake. When we come in as grassroots women to respond to these issues, we are not responding to issues that are affecting us alone. We are responding to issues that are affecting our community. This is the mandate of government. From that, we begin understanding that we are partners of government. We are bringing solution to a problem that is affecting our community, which is a responsibility of a government. So the moment we understand that we are partners of government, we claim positions. We claim to sit on the table and discuss these issues as equal partners. The courage of grassroots women being able to respond to issues is when they understand they are partners of government, they can sit on the same table. It is even a very, I would say, a good model because usually we have meetings. For example, we are here today. We will discuss so many things. If we don't have these grassroots women in the room to go back home and feedback their small groups, feedback their communities, no one knows what people are discussing. Governments have had very many meetings. Development partners have had very many meetings. But when grassroots women, from the experience of me working in the Airu Commission, when we came in the boardroom and we were able to hear what the government was saying, we were able to set our priorities and really bring in what is it that we want to achieve. Set collective action plans with governments. That is what transformed our society. What I simply mean is that grassroots women lead from the bottom up. We don't lead from top. Okay. And governments could lead from top, could lead from very important work plans which we respect. But until we sit together to share these work plans, to design the work plans that matter for our people, to ensure that the priorities of the local people are put in, then we do not have, we cannot achieve development. Okay. I quickly want to say something about this moment. This is a very critical moment, and I think it's very important that this forum is happening at this time. Our governments have signed to the Sustainable Development Goals. This is not something that we are going to achieve if we don't have meaningful partnership that recognizes the contribution of grassroots women, that recognizes that grassroots women are actually not targets of development. They are not beneficiary, but they are key actors that their voices need to be at the table. And that is what simply means in the SDGs, leaving no one behind, ensuring the grassroots women are in the room, they are designing programs, they are the ones measuring the indicators, they are developing their priorities and feedbacking to each other. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Violet. Very powerful again. So, Neera, I turn to you. Neera Nandi, the founder of Dasra, which has been working for almost 2 decades now, on building the ecosystem for social change in our country. And not just an ecosystem, but a very innovative ecosystem, which is bringing different actors into the same room. So taking off from what Violet said, having people across the table. Who are the people at the table? How do we ensure that we no longer look at the people we serve as beneficiaries, but we look at them as active stakeholders? Your work with nonprofits, your work with philanthropists, how are you ensuring that the dialogue is that much more equality-based, rather than I give, you receive, and therefore you do, right? But it's like we are all actors in a chain working towards transformation. So what is Dasra's role and your own experience in that, Neera?
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, Payal, and thank you, Prema, for inviting me. I don't know what's worse, speaking after Chetna or speaking after Violet, but it's such a privilege to be on this stage together. It's rare that you can be on a panel with all women, and it's even more rare when they all sit so close together. So thank you. Thank you. But I think my perspective's a bit different. I continue to be inspired by the works of Prema and Chetna, but I somehow landed into this space by coming through sort of the business side. So I worked in investment banking. I grew up in Canada, and then I went to Harvard Business School. And I think it was at that point where you start to reflect that we can't look at women leadership with just one main broad stroke. And I think it's important that if we really want to build women's leadership across, we need to really look at it from a political angle, from a business angle, from a community grassroots perspective. We all come from different economic backgrounds, and I think if you start to cut it, then we can start to really address the issues in each of this kind of matrix. I think we run the risk of my view of women's leadership coming from, that lens and this view. What we've tried to do with Dasra is, how do you build the language and how do you build the connection so that it's not actually top down? And some of where we started actually was just language. The words we use in the business world are very different than the words that we use in the social sector. And so we have training programs that we call leadership programs that are trying to bring what has been successful in business in terms of how do you have organizations scale, what's the role of leadership, and how do you translate that into implementation implementing organizations and NGOs so that they can take their organizations with this kind of basic skill set. So I think just breaking that down a bit is really important. I think for me it was also recognizing what are our skills. So when I was in business school, I romanticized about self-help groups. I thought I will wear a cotton sari and I will go into the village and I will create these self-help groups. And then I came to India and I volunteered at Seva and I was like, wow, there are all these women, just women like yourselves, that are way better than I was at mobilizing women. And therefore, where do you place your strengths in terms of being able to even start to build a leadership perspective, I think is actually really important. I think the other piece we do need to think about, and I really like SSP's margin to mainstream, where it just kind of says that below, and I think that's relevant, across sectors, margin to mainstream. And so how do you bring women into the mainstream? And I think sometimes one of our challenges is with women's leadership is, can you build women's leadership at the cost of men's leadership? And I think some of the feminist movement is starting to recognize, we're all recognizing that there's a role for both. And I think we have to figure out what will represent women's leadership. And there's been research around we're much more collective, we build more consensus, but we can be equally violent and we can be equally involved in building peace and sort of negotiation. And so I think it's important for us, if we see the mainstream right now, if we like it or not, is men's leadership. How will that start to coexist with what we're starting to build? I think some of that will actually come from how you have built grassroots leadership. And it's important for us, therefore, even that bridging to be really quite catalytic. I just wanted to end with what we have seen in our own experience with supporting NGOs in sort of the women's leadership space. It's actually come from where we've supported Mandeshi, where they have that rural business school, or we've supported sort of SSP with building out their Sakhi program. And then we've also supported the Hunger Project, which is how do you build women's capacity to represent in the panchayat? And so there's a role for capacity building, as in how do we actually help women, not just with entrepreneurial skills, but also with how do they represent themselves. And some of that comes from the peers, but some of it also comes from a self-realization, but it also comes with helping them navigate through the existing environment. So I feel also the support that NGOs do to capacity be building these women and therefore building these platforms, I think cuts across. And just to end with, we will not solve the Sustainable Development Goals without solving problems in India. If we move the needle in India on pretty much any of these goals, we will move the needle globally. And so I'm really excited, Prema and SSP, that you've done this global forum here in India, and I hope we are dedicated as a country to moving these goals.
Yeah, thank you so much, Neera. I'll take that. Ulrika, so this is a good time to bring you in. You're a career diplomat. You work with the Swedish General Council, right? You and I were talking about the role of women and how both our countries obviously have had different trajectories, and what you see for women in India, women in leadership positions, women in decision-making positions. You had something to say about that, and then linking it to what Neera is saying, that if India does not move the needle on the SDGs, globally there's not going to be success there. So what are some of your thoughts around there? I know you've been in India for 2 years. I don't want to put you on the spot, but globally, how do you think about that?
No, thank you so much. Thank you, Prima, and thank you, Praya. I will start where you ended on the SDGs and the Agenda 2030, because it couldn't be more true that if the choices that India makes will influence the whole world globally, whether we actually manage to meet these SDGs by 2030 or not. And of course, it's maybe unfortunate that women's rights became an SDG 5 when it should have been mainstreamed. Because I think that's really where Sweden is coming from. We are talking about half of the world's population, and the half of the world's population has to be represented It has to be given a voice, it has to be given a place at the table, and it has to be given resources, and then we have to do reality checks constantly to check whether we are actually making progress. So I think what I can bring is, of course, I've been in the diplomatic service for soon 30 years, and I've always worked on women's rights, always. So it's, for us, our starting point is we're talking about human rights. And then, so we're not talking just about agents of change, we're talking about rights holders. And that is where we have to start. So I take a little bit of an exception when people are talking about economic empowerment, because that's only part of the parcel. That's not the whole picture. And one of the things that has become a concern for my country and for me personally in these 2 years that I've been here is when I look, for example, at women participating in the labor force, I see a global trend where there are more women being moved into both the formal sector and into the labor force. If I look, for example, at China, China is at 63%. In Sweden, we are doing 89%, but maybe we are on the sort of extreme end of this. But India stands out because it has a declining percentage of women in the workforce. So India used to be at 42% in 1990. In 2018, it is down at 25%. And that is an untapped resource. Your GDP could increase with 60% if you were to just change that movement. Globally, since you were at the World Economic Forum, the GDP of the world could increase with 26%. So we're talking about the well-being, lifting people out of poverty globally if we were to make sure that India's indicators change. And that is moving women who are, of course they're working, they're just unpaid work. And they're at home, or they're in the informal sector. They need to be brought into the formal sector. And that they need to be given legal, the legal environment, the legal framework, and of course politicians, as you were saying, states need to be held accountable. So where do I fit into all of this? Because of course I can share a lot of examples from how Sweden has achieved gender equality, but it will sound very strange to talk about parental leave or individual in taxation. It's not really something that you would necessarily relate to, but what we can do is we can try to help to increase the ratio of women who are actually given a paid job. And not just educate a lot of girls to have them be the best in their class, and then they go home, and then they become housewives, and as soon as they have children, they will never consider even taking up a job. What can we do? Of course, I wanted to start small, so I happen to have here in the Pune region about 100 Swedish companies. For historical reasons, they came here in the 50s. And of course, they feel one of their core values, among other things, besides the SDGs, is gender equality. They want to have more female employees, and they are doing a lot of CSR to help women empowerment and female entrepreneurs. So we did a study last summer in this region to figure out exactly where we were standing, both on the sort of human resources side and what they were doing on the CSR side. I saw a potential in terms of pooling their resources so that we would actually manage to achieve real change on the ground. And they were all amenable and supportive and decided to join forces. So we formed a project that we called Kraftsamla. It means joining forces in Swedish, and I know there's an Indian Hindi word for kraftsmala. So. But under that, we sort of created 4 pillars. So one has to do with the companies actually exchanging best practices on how you can increase, from a human personnel perspective, the number of women employed in the companies. The second pillar was about skills, creating skills among young girls between 18 to 35. And of course, skills that are requested by a certain sector, instead of to individual companies, that you would actually do a sector. So we're doing right now manufacturing sector, and that means we're educating women to become forklift drivers, machine operators, technicians, doing warehousing. And we just recruited the first batch of 110 young girls from underprivileged background in the Pune area.
Yeah.
The third pillar was to build value chains, where we actually empower women to become female entrepreneurs. And there we are hoping that we are able to organize the female farmers on the dairy side to actually deliver milk and other products to the canteens of the companies. Or even we have a company called IKEA who's going to open up soon, that we can create the value chain and assist the female farmers. The fourth pillar is really around code of conduct. Most of the companies have safety, security, and fighting child labor, but they don't have gender equality. So we're asking them to bring in gender equality into their code of conduct. And we are at the early stages, but we will eventually, I hope, change the ecosystem in this region. And if it works out well, we'll try to replicate it all over India.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Rashmi, best-selling author, 12 languages. Your books have been translated into, and Touch the Sky, which you wrote about women entrepreneurs and the inspiring stories of women are shaping their own destinies. I'm sure there's another book coming out after this. You know, the stories that you're hearing from all of them, global, this is a global panel. What are some of the thoughts? Because storytelling is key to the messages that we are sending out, right? So you heard that if India doesn't move the needle on SDGs, not much is going to happen. You have people, you need to get grassroots women around the table for things to move. All the different actors have to come around the table. Chetna's story of the World Economic Forum, where she negotiated with them to launch the 100 crore fund, and the work that the Swedish General Council is now doing in, pushing ahead the issue of gender equality, right? So where is the storytelling? Where is the messaging? What is it that we need to tell the world? And as an author, what is it that most excites you about women leadership?
So everybody has a story. हर किसी की ज़िंदगी एक कहानी है, लेकिन इस कहानी को कौन लिख रहा है? वो कलम किसके हाथ में है? Who is writing that story? तो मेरे ख्याल से जो सही अर्थ है स्वयं शिक्षण का, वो ये है कि मैं अपनी ज़िंदगी की कहानी मैं खुद लिख रही हूँ, right? I'm writing my own destiny, story of my own life. So ये एक बहुत बड़ी मतलब अचीवमेंट है. ये तो जादू की बात आपने करी, यही जादू है कि अंदर से हमारे अंदर एक जागरूकता पैदा हुई कि ठीक है, समाज में कई बुराइयां हैं, बंधन हैं, प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, लेकिन समाज तो वैसा है, लेकिन मैं अपने अंदर क्या चेंज कर सकती हूँ, मैं अपने अंदर क्या शक्ति को उभार सकती हूँ. सो आई थिंक दैट हैज़ अ लॉट ऑफ पावर. स्टोरीज में बहुत ज़्यादा शक्ति होती है. एंड इन आवर कल्चर इन इंडिया वी आर वेरी वेरी अवेयर ऑफ दिस, क्योंकि हमारी जितनी भी वैल्यूज़ हैं हमने पढ़ी हैं किताबों में नहीं, स्कूल टेक्स्ट बुक में नहीं, हमने सीखी हैं रामायण से, महाभारत से. वो कहानियाँ हैं, मात्र कहानियाँ नहीं हैं, उसमें कुछ लेसन्स हैं. Or we have a long tradition of storytelling in our country through Ramayana, through Mahabharata, through which we have learned these lessons. And in our country we have a dichotomy कि एक तरफ औरत को एक बहुत बड़ा दर्जा दिया जाता है देवी का, और दूसरी तरफ निचले स्तर पे भी मतलब हमें कुचला भी जाता है, हमें दबाया जाता है. We are oppressed and yet we are also revered as goddesses. तो मेरे हिसाब से जो है आज की एक रिक्वायरमेंट है, जो नीड है, जो आज हमारी एक स्लोगन चल रहा है, बेटी पढ़ाओ बेटी बचाओ, वो बहुत अच्छी चीज़ है, मतलब नेशनल लेवल पे एक मूवमेंट है, लेकिन उसको हर जगह मतलब सच्चाई करने के लिए हमें जो एक एफर्ट करना है, हमें एक नई कहानियाँ लिखनी है. जैसे गोदावरी ताई की कहानी है, या आप में से so many of you who are here, जो भी सखियाँ हैं, हर एक की बहुत ही सुंदर कहानी होगी. ये कहानियाँ हमें स्कूल में लेके जानी है. जब बच्चियाँ चौथी क्लास में, 5वीं क्लास में, तब से उनको सोचना चाहिए कि मेरा फ्यूचर क्या हो सकता है, मेरे आगे क्या क्या अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ हैं. सो फ्रॉम अ वेरी यंग एज आई थिंक इन स्कूल्स वी हैव टू इंट्रोड्यूस दीज स्टोरीज. क्योंकि अभी हम सिर्फ हिस्टोरिकल फिगर्स के बारे में पढ़ते हैं, जिन्होंने 200 साल पहले कुछ किया, 500 साल, 1000 साल, यू नो, वी रीड हिस्टोरिकल स्टोरीज. बट आज की जो प्रॉब्लम्स के बारे में हमें जो जिससे जूझना है, वो स्टोरीज हम मतलब उसे हम लाना चाहते हैं. शायद मेरा इसमें एक छोटा सा रोल है, मैं अपने ढंग से कर रही हूँ. बाकी टुडे वी हैव इंटरनेट, वी हैव यूट्यूब, वी हैव सो मेनी फैसिलिटीज़. सो आई थिंक वीडियो स्टोरीज, ऑडियो स्टोरीज, तो जो भी आपकी स्टोरीज हैं, आई वुड रिक्वेस्ट प्रेमा जी टू प्लीज़ ट्राई टू रिकॉर्ड देम, शेयर देम ऑनलाइन इन योर लोकल लैंग्वेज. आपकी जो मराठी, कन्नड़ा, जो भी मतलब लोकल भाषा है, उसको डब भी कर सकते हैं. लेकिन स्टोरी में बहुत पावर है. और आई विल जस्ट शेयर, जो मैंने रिसेंटली किताब लिखी टच द स्काई, हिंदी में उसका रूपांतर है छू लो आसमान. तो 15 अलग अलग महिलाओं की स्टोरीज लिखी हैं. कुछ छोटे गांव से हैं, कुछ बड़े शहर से हैं, लेकिन प्रॉब्लम सबको हैं. कुछ जो कहते हैं, आपने कहा सामाजिक बंधन, सोशल बैरियर्स, सम आर इंटरनल साइकोलॉजिकल बैरियर्स. कई मैनी विमेन वी आर ब्रॉट अप टू, यू नो, हम परमिशन लेते हैं हर चीज़ के लिए, मेरे को इजाज़त दो तो मैं कुछ काम करूं. ओके, तो दे डोंट हैव दैट थिंग ऑफ सीजिंग द अपॉर्चुनिटी और टेकिंग द स्टेप. तो उन्हीं की कम्युनिटी में, फैमिली में अगर कोई रोल मॉडल हो, तो उनको देखकर उन्हें बहुत शक्ति मिलती है. सो इन दिस बुक देयर इज अ स्टोरी ऑफ वन लेडी कॉल सुषमा भादू. वो हरियाणा में रहती थी. And now in Haryana there was a tradition of, you know, covering your face, पर्दा जिसे बोलते हैं. इवन जो फार्म में, जो विलेज में मतलब किसान की तरह जो काम कर रही हूँ, पर उनको अपना मुंह ढक के काम करना पड़ेगा. अब आप सोचो कितनी गर्मी में आप, वो इस तरह की प्रथा चलती जा रही. सो देयर वाज अ लेडी called Sushma Bhadu, and she didn't like this at all, and she rallied the women of her village. She became the sarpanch, and she then created a movement कि आज उन सभी गांव में से पर्दा प्रथा हट गई है. सो दिस इज द फर्स्ट स्टेप, एंड गोइंग फॉरवर्ड आई एम श्योर दिस वुमेन कैन डू मेनी मोर थिंग्स. तो लीडरशिप जो है हमारे घर के अंदर, हमारे समाज के अंदर से भी निकलनी पड़ेगी. जो आज भी हमारे यहाँ डाउरी देने की जो प्रथा है, चाहे लड़की कितनी भी पढ़ लिख जाए, लेकिन साथ में उसी को मतलब एक तरह से यू नो दैट डाउरी प्रथा जो हम आजकल भूल गए, लेकिन आज भी है हर घर में. तो आई थिंक वी शुड ऑल्सो लुक एट दीज एस्पेक्ट्स, और तभी विमेन लीडरशिप और एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप की तरह बढ़ पाएंगी. दोनों साथ साथ हैं. आई मीन व्हेन विमेन स्टार्ट अर्निंग, देन दे ऑल्सो गेट मोर से इन देयर होम्स. लेकिन अगर हमारे घर में कोई चीज़ हो रही है जो हमें पसंद नहीं है, जो हमारे वैल्यू सिस्टम के खिलाफ है, if we don't like what we see going on in our own homes and we don't oppose it, then we cannot progress. In the same book, I'll just end with one story. There was a girl who lived in Chandkheda in Gujarat. Her mother was a widow. तो उनको बोला कि आप बेटी की शादी में आप उनको मतलब नहीं आप कन्यादान कर सकते, उनके शादी में आप बैठना भी मत, because it's inauspicious for a widow to attend her daughter's marriage. Don't see her, you know, before she's मतलब जो भी मंगल काम है उसमें उनको ना. So this girl, she put her foot down and said, no, if my mother doesn't participate in the wedding rituals, I will not get married. And finally family had to agree. तो ये कोई मतलब शी इज़ जस्ट एन ऑर्डिनरी गर्ल, उसकी कोई मतलब व्हाट शुड आई से, इट्स जस्ट अ स्टैंड दैट शी टुक, और इस तरह का स्टैंड हम सब ले सकते हैं. सो आई थिंक ये एक बहुत ही बढ़िया प्लेटफॉर्म है, इसको आगे बढ़ाना है. एंड इट इज़ वंडरफुल दैट वी हैव सो मेनी ग्लोबल लीडर्स एंड कम्युनिटी लीडर्स कमिंग टुगेदर. और नेक्स्ट सेंचुरी, ये सेंचुरी जो है, इट इज़ अ सेंचुरी ऑफ विमेन कमिंग फॉरवर्ड and making a meaningful difference. So I once again congratulate SSP and all the Sakhis.
Yeah. Thank you, Rashmi. So this century is the century of women. Chetna, your thoughts. We are going to close very quickly. One minute each participant. Your thoughts.
So when you say that this century is a century of women, I would say कि, और थोड़ा हिंदी बोलने का मुझे भी एकदम मन हो रहा है, तो वो सेंचुरी की शुरुआत ऐसी होगी कि सिर्फ हंगामा खड़ा करना मेरा मकसद नहीं, मेरी कोशिश है कि ये सूरत बदलनी चाहिए. जब महिलाएं सोचती हैं तो वो, एंड आई जस्ट गिव यू वन एग्जांपल, कि when we were introducing mobile banking in Mandeshi Bank, and we were trying to tell our women that when you are using mobile banking, you will have to remember a PIN number. So then our women said, आमच्या बायकांनी सांगितलं की आम्हाला PIN number नको, we don't want PIN number, find some other alternative. So then we said, no, but it is very important, you need to, तुम्हाला PIN number आठवण ठेवायलाच पाहिजे, आम्ही शिकवणार, असं करणार. Women said, no, find other solution. Then we connected our mobile banking with biometric, and then we started. You know how women responded? They said, see, मेरा पिन नंबर तो कोई भी चुरा के ले लेगा, माझं कोणी चोरून घेणार, पण अंगठा माझं कोणी चोरून घेणार का? This is the leadership where women comes with those innovative ideas, and I want to link with the investment world or the finance or other, where when women leads, what thing comes. And same it is happening with our alternative investment fund also, that when I meet investors, they say, yeah, while talking they would say like, okay, this is great, all plan, we want to do impact investment and all, but we would like to know how do we exit. And then some of our women, grassroots women sitting, and they said like, what? I mean, they said, हमने मानदेशी बैंक चालू किया, we never thought of like exit. It is going to grow. So then we told our investors कि our women don't even, while taking the dividend, they will say that we need to have a reserves, because you need to make the institution very strong. So what I think from margin, those messages are much stronger than the mainstream. Mainstream doesn't think of making those institutions very strong. Mainstream immediately think like, what next? But have a very strong institutions, and I think that comes from the women leadership, and with the fund also we thought. So we had to tell our investors that yes, you are going to get the returns, but also पैसे में returns आप तुम्हाला मिळेल, but you are going to get a strong institution of women entrepreneurs, which is such a social value, which is going to drive the GDP, which is going to meet the SDG goals. So I just would like to say that when the leadership comes in, like, and in this digital world, I am very sure, like with the alternative to PIN is like a very strong thumb, those things will come if the space is created. And I agree, Neera, like you need such organization like Dasra, which would create the space, because our women, we never thought the business school will go to this level. So yeah, when the leadership, this is the century of women leadership, great. And with that, I would say that even the women are going to change the investors and the financial world, where they bring in a very different innovation.
Oh, great. Thank you, Chetna. So very quickly, Neera, since, Chetna mentioned your work and how you're helping them scale. So where do you think century for women, century of women, century by women, and where does Dasra with its, you have the Dasra Girls Alliance? So could you, where do you see that and your work? And it's time up, actually. Chandran has informed me, but we'll quickly wrap up. Yes.
I'll be really fast because I
Yes.
know after hearing the ambassador, I couldn't agree with more. I think we're struggling with changing the mindset. And so we've realized that it's not just about working with NGOs, it's not just about quotas, it's not just about, you know, having a focus on women's. It's our own mindset, but it's also the narrative that's actually out there. And through the collaborative that we've built, we've realized we all must invest in changing that narrative. And I know you have media tables here. Media, it can be one of the key levers to start to change this narrative that helps us also as women start to understand that. So if you think about the statistics in India, 70% of IIM Ahmedabad women graduates do not work. There is an inverse relationship between economic status and privilege and wanting to participate. So families are looked down upon well-educated women who work. So that's part of our own problem. We have a narrative in our own heads when we're coming from there, and we have a narrative in our heads when we're coming from the grassroots. So I think we need to change that.
Wonderful, Neera. Thanks for putting that forward. You know, Violet, and Rashmi and I had a conversation about that yesterday, but Violet, do you think that's true of your country and the Century for Women, as Rashmi said?
Yeah, I'll
Your thoughts?
particularly speak about my organization, Wairu Commission. In this Century of Women, it's actually very true, and there are things that we are actually really committed to doing. One is we want to continue investing in organizing, because we have actually seen, and we have a case that shows that when women are organized, then they are able to tackle the issues that affect them and be able to transform themselves to become leaders. We know that because it's SDG period, we are going to have a lot of data collection. And that is what leaves grassroots women behind, because usually data is collected by external people and it doesn't reveal the real issues on how people's life is transforming in the community. So we are going to invest in training grassroots women to do data collection, including collecting testimonies that tell how their lives is improving, how they are accessing land and even controlling the farm produce, and the different activities that are actually showing that this century, the grassroots women life is actually improving. We will continue to strengthen our partnership with like-minded organizations that believe in the same during this time. And we believe that we want, actually, as I had said, we want to demonstrate that grassroots women can be organized from local to global and transform the society positively. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Violet. Yes, Ulrika. Local to global Century for Women. What are your thoughts on that?
I happen to be a person who believes that we need men to achieve this. So we shouldn't, it's not just women on their own, it's women and men. And the goal is 50-50. So it's not 100% women and no men, or 100% men and no women. It has to be 50-50, and I think we need to keep that vision. I couldn't agree more with the fact that all narratives are sort of very specific to each country. I worked in many countries, and I always felt, and I was always told, Ulrika, we appreciate your support, but this is our struggle. Don't do it for us, because then we will just be accused of, you know, pushing a Western agenda. Yeah. This is our struggle. So again, I'll repeat that we are there to support you, but we won't do the job for you. But what we can do is try to help to change the narrative. And one thing that we have done is we have gone into Wikipedia and actually put in the women that have contributed to changing the world. So on Women's Day, we actually had 100, all our foreign missions recruited youngsters from the different universities, and they went into Wikipedia and actually put all the women that they could find in that country that was of relevance to shaping the history and the future. And I think we need to do that every year. until
Wonderful
such
idea.
time that we actually shape the history correctly.
Yeah.
Then lastly, I do feel that when we sort of team up, but also include the men and change their perception, then we will be able to make real progress.
Yeah.
And I'm happy when I go back to my home country. It's not the girls or the women who are fighting anymore for gender equality, it's actually the men.
Men.
They want it because they see the advantages of it.
Yeah.
So you know where the
Yeah.
goal is
Yeah.
to be set.
Yeah, wonderful. So, thank you, Rashmi. It's only befitting, as the author, you get the last word. And we are talking about the narrative, right? So, men and women together.
वेल लड़कियों को मैं यही कहूँगी, ज़िद्दी बनो, बेशरम हो थोड़ा और बिंदास रहो. Meaning what I mean to say is that when we talk about passion, it is about being stubborn, it is about being ज़िद्दी. हर चीज़ आप दूसरों की मानोगे तो you cannot move forward. And shame is something which holds back all the women कि ये तो मतलब शर्म करो, लड़कियों को ही बोलते हैं. So I think I agree that लड़कों लड़कियों को साथ ही चलना है. I mean it's both men and women, but it's just that at present the women are a little behind, so they need to catch up. तो जो mindset बदलना है वो ये है कि मैं कर सकती हूँ, मैं करूँगी और करके दिखाऊँगी. आप सब कर ही रहे हो और बिंदास रहिए और दूसरे क्या सोचते हैं आपके बारे में, उसके बारे में इतना मत उसको ध्यान दीजिए. I think that's one of the main things which holds women back. What do other people think of me? What does my family think? What does the neighbor think? And you can never please everyone. So we have to start dreaming for ourselves. अपने खुद के लिए आप सपने देखिए.
Yeah, thanks, Rashmi. Thank you so much. So with that, we close the panel. It is my privilege to have been with absolutely 5 brilliant, shameless, bindas, you know, at the forefront, fighters, changing the narrative. It's so privileged to be here with you. Thank you very much. And I just want to close, remind us of Chetna's words when she said, "My courage is my capital." Thank you very, very much. Thank you.